We're thankful for your continued viewership. Before we begin, tell us, where in the world are you watching from? We love knowing our global reach. Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1. The Foundation. Connor Mitchell stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of his corner office, watching the December snow blanket downtown Austin. At 38, he commanded respect in both boardrooms and back alleys, a skill set honed during 8 years as a Navy SEAL before transitioning to private military contracting. His security consulting firm, Titan Defense Solutions, had grown from a one-man operation to a multi-million-dollar enterprise in just 5 years. The nickname, The Cleaner, had followed him from the teams to civilian life. When problems needed to disappear completely, whether insurgent cells in Kandahar or corporate espionage in corporate America, Connor made them vanish without a trace. Clean, efficient, permanent. He adjusted his charcoal suit and checked his Omega Seamaster. Diana would be expecting him for their anniversary dinner at the Driscoll Hotel. 7 years of marriage, though lately she'd grown distant. More shopping trips with friends, longer spa weekends, hush phone calls that ended when he entered the room. Connor's assistant, Beverly, knocked and entered. "Mr. Mitchell, your cousin Tyler's here. Says it's urgent." Tyler Hammond shuffled in, his usual nervous energy amplified. At 35, Tyler worked as Connor's operations manager, a position Connor had created more from family loyalty than necessity. Tyler had always lived in Connor's shadow, from high school football to military service that ended after 6 months due to anxiety issues. "Connor, buddy, we need to talk." Tyler's eyes darted around the office. "It's about the Christmas timeline for the Peterson contract." Connor studied his cousin's fidgeting hands, the slight sweat despite the December chill. Tyler was lying. Connor's training had taught him to read micro-expressions, stress indicators, deception tells. Tyler exhibited all three. "The Peterson contract is on schedule," Connor said calmly. "What's really on your mind?" Tyler forced a laugh. "You always were paranoid. Look, I just wanted to make sure everything's perfect for your anniversary. Diana mentioned you're going somewhere special." Connor hadn't told Tyler about dinner plans. Only Diana knew. "Just dinner at the Driscoll," Connor replied, watching Tyler's pupils dilate slightly, another stress indicator. Great. Well, I should head out. Tell Diana I said happy anniversary." After Tyler left, Connor sat in his leather chair, fingers steepled. Something was wrong. His instincts had kept him alive through 3 combat deployments and countless private operations. They were screaming now. He opened his laptop and accessed Titan's internal security system. Every employee's keycard access, computer activity, and phone records were monitored, a necessity in his business. Tyler's activity showed normal patterns until 3 weeks ago, when he'd started accessing Connor's personal calendar and financial files he had no business viewing. Connor's jaw tightened. Family or not, betrayal was betrayal. His phone buzzed with a text from Diana. "Rain check on dinner? Emergency with mom. Love you." Diana's mother had been dead for 2 years. Connor leaned back, his mind shifting into operational mode. 2 lies in 1 afternoon from the 2 people closest to him. In the field, this would trigger immediate counter-surveillance and threat assessment protocols. He opened his safe and retrieved a small device, a GPS tracker no bigger than a button. His wedding ring felt suddenly heavy as he slipped the tracker into his pocket. Time to find out what his wife and cousin were really up to. Chapter 2. The Discovery. Connor's modified Ford Raptor followed Diana's BMW from a distance as she navigated Austin's evening traffic. The GPS tracker he'd placed on her car 3 days ago had led him to several interesting locations. Tyler's apartment twice, a law office in downtown Austin, and now the parking garage of the Four Seasons Hotel. Through his binoculars, Connor watched Diana emerge from her car wearing the red dress he'd bought her in Milan, the one she claimed was too fancy for anywhere. She checked her phone and walked toward the hotel's rear entrance. Connor's jaw clenched. The Four Seasons was where they'd spent their honeymoon. His earpiece crackled. "Uck, this is Raven. Target 2 entering building, east side." Rebecca, his sister and business partner, had positioned herself in the hotel's lobby bar. At 34, Becca had inherited the family's military genetics, serving 6 years as Army intelligence before joining Titan. Copy, Raven. I'm moving to observation point 2. Connor entered through the main lobby, his tailored suit and confident bearing marking him as another wealthy guest. He made his way to the mezzanine level overlooking the restaurant. Through the decorative railing, he saw Diana at a corner table. Across from her sat Tyler, but they weren't alone. A third man, tall and silver-haired, faced away from Connor. All three leaned forward in intense conversation, occasionally glancing around the restaurant. Connor activated the parabolic microphone hidden in his watch, a gift from his days working with the CIA. The device could pick up conversations from 50 yards away. Has to happen before Christmas, the silver-haired man was saying. The will reading is December 26th. After that, everything changes. Tyler's voice. But what if he gets suspicious? Connor's not stupid. He knows people. He's not going to suspect his loving wife and trusted cousin, Diana replied coldly. Besides, once the accident happens, it won't matter what he might have figured out. Connor's blood turned to ice. Accident. The silver-haired man turned slightly, revealing his profile. Leonard Vasquez, Diana's divorce attorney. Connor recognized him from background checks he'd run when Diana mentioned needing legal advice about her late mother's estate. The inheritance from his grandfather is worth $47 million, Vasquez continued. Split between you, Diana. It's enough to disappear anywhere. But the window closes after Christmas. The old man's lawyers made that very clear. Connor's mind raced. His grandfather had died 8 months ago, leaving Connor everything. But the will contained a bizarre clause. If Connor died before the first Christmas following his grandfather's death, the inheritance would be split equally between Diana and Tyler as the next closest relatives. At the time, Connor had thought it was just eccentric legal maneuvering. Now he understood it was a death sentence. The plan is already arranged, Tyler said. Connor thinks we're going to Dallas for the Morrison contract review. I've made sure he'll want to pilot himself. You know how he is about control. Diana laughed, a sound that once made Connor's heart race. He always said flying was freedom. Ironic, isn't it? Connor had logged over 2,000 flight hours in military and civilian aircraft. But if someone tampered with his plane, what about the insurance investigation? Diana asked. Pilot error, Vasquez replied smoothly. Bad weather, mechanical failure. These things happen. I have contacts in the FAA who owe me favors. Connor closed his eyes, feeling the familiar calm that descended before combat operations. His grandfather had always said Connor was too trusting with family. The old man had been right. His earpiece crackled again. Uck, we have movement. Target 2 is heading to the ladies' room. Connor stood and moved toward the stairs. When Diana emerged from the restroom, she nearly collided with him. Connor, her face went white. What are you doing here? Business meeting ran late. Thought I'd grab a drink before heading home. He smiled, the same easy grin that had charmed her 7 years ago. What about your mom's emergency? Diana's recovery was smooth, but not perfect. Connor caught the micro-hesitation, the slight uptick in her breathing. False alarm. She's fine. I was just meeting Tyler about Christmas plans. Another lie. How thoughtful of you both. Connor kissed her cheek, catching the scent of expensive perfume, not the one he'd bought her. I'll see you at home. As he walked away, Connor activated his phone's recording app. Time to gather evidence. Not for the police. They'd never understand the nuances of what he was planning. This was personal now. And when things became personal, the cleaner came out to play. Chapter 3. The Sister's Warning. Connor's home office resembled a scaled-down version of a military command center. Multiple monitors displayed security feeds, financial data, and communication intercepts. Rebecca sat across from his desk, her laptop open to surveillance footage from the Four Seasons. I ran facial recognition on the attorney, she said, turning her screen toward Connor. Leonard Vasquez. Divorced 3 times, 2 DUI arrests, gambling problem. He's drowning in debt from bad investments. Connor studied Vasquez's financial records. The man owed 6 figures to some very unfriendly people in Las Vegas. Desperate men made dangerous allies. What about Tyler's recent activities? Rebecca pulled up another file. He's been liquidating assets quietly. Sold his watch collection, emptied his savings account, transferred everything to an offshore account in the Cayman Islands. Classic preparation for disappearing. And Diana, your wife's been busy. Rebecca's voice carried an edge of disgust. 3 separate meetings with divorce attorneys in the past month. She's also been researching life insurance policies and inheritance law. But here's the interesting part. She's been using a burner phone for most of these communications. Connor leaned back in his chair. The tactical picture was becoming clear. This wasn't a spontaneous betrayal born of passion or opportunity. This was a calculated, long-term operation. His phone buzzed. Diana, texting from upstairs. Working late again? Come to bed soon. Read hard. Connor showed Rebecca the message. She made a disgusted sound. 8 months, Connor said quietly. They've been planning this since grandfather's funeral. The timeline makes sense, Rebecca agreed. Diana started acting strange right after the will reading. I thought she was just grieving. Connor remembered that day clearly. The family had gathered in his grandfather's study as the lawyer read the will. When Connor inherited everything, Diana had seemed shocked, almost upset. Tyler had looked sick. Now Connor understood why. There's something else, Rebecca said, her voice careful. I traced Diana's phone records. She's been in contact with someone else. Calls to a number registered to a company called Apex Logistics. Connor's blood chilled. Apex Logistics was a front company used by mercenaries and private military contractors. The kind of people who solve problems with violence for the right price. They're not just planning an accident, he realized. They're hiring professionals. Rebecca nodded grimly. The call started 2 weeks ago. Short conversations, always encrypted, but I managed to trace the company back to Magnus Kellerman. Connor knew that name. Kellerman ran a network of former special operations soldiers who'd gone private sector. They specialized in making wealthy people's problems disappear permanently. How much time do we have? The Dallas trip is scheduled for tomorrow. Tyler's already filed the flight plan. Connor stood and walked to his safe, withdrawing a tactical vest and shoulder holster. Inside the holster sat his Sig Sauer P320, a weapon that had served him well in darker places. What's the plan? Rebecca asked. First, we document everything. Full evidence package, recordings, financial transfers, communication logs. Insurance in case something happens to us. And then, Connor's smile was cold and predatory. Then we give them exactly what they want. Rebecca raised an eyebrow. They want Connor Mitchell to disappear, he explained. So Connor Mitchell will disappear. But the cleaner is going to pay them a visit. As if summoned by his words, Diana appeared in the doorway wearing a silk nightgown. Her timing was too perfect, her smile too bright. Still working, baby? You'll burn yourself out. She glanced at Rebecca with carefully concealed irritation. Becca, it's pretty late. Just finishing up, Rebecca replied smoothly, closing her laptop. Early flight tomorrow, right, Connor? 7 a.m., Connor confirmed. Tyler and I have that client meeting in Dallas. Diana's eyes lit up with genuine pleasure, the first authentic emotion Connor had seen from her in months. Well, don't work too late, she said, kissing Connor's cheek. Big day tomorrow. After Diana left, Rebecca shook her head. She's actually excited about murdering you. Connor checked his weapon and slipped it into the holster. She's about to learn why you should never betray someone called the cleaner. The real operation was about to begin. Chapter 4. The Hunt Begins. Connor's hangar sat on the outskirts of Austin Bergstrom International Airport, housing his pride and joy, a Cirrus SR-22 that had cost him nearly $1 million. He arrived before dawn, ostensibly for pre-flight checks, but actually to inspect his aircraft for sabotage. Using a tactical flashlight, he methodically examined every inch of the plane. What he found made his jaw clench with rage. Someone had tampered with the fuel mixture control and loosened bolts on the elevator control cables. In flight, the sabotage would cause engine failure followed by loss of control. The crash would look like pilot error, exactly as Vasquez had described. Tyler arrived 20 minutes later, coffee in hand and an Oscar-worthy performance of casual concern. Ready for Dallas, cuz? Tyler's smile never quite reached his eyes. "Just finishing the pre-flight," Connor replied. "Want to grab breakfast before we take off?" "Actually, I already ate. Let's get going." Traffic was murder getting here. Connor pretended to study his checklist while watching Tyler in his peripheral vision. His cousin kept glancing at his phone, occasionally typing quick messages, probably updating Diana and Vasquez on the timeline. "Looks like weather might be an issue," Connor said, pointing to cloud formations on the horizon. "Might want to file an alternate flight plan." Tyler's face went pale. "I thought you said the weather was perfect." "Weather changes, cuz. That's why pilots stay flexible." For the next hour, Connor deliberately delayed their departure with various safety concerns and mechanical checks. Each delay sent Tyler deeper into nervous panic. The man was sweating despite the December cold. Finally, Connor made his move. "You know what, Tyler? I'm not comfortable with this weather. Let's postpone until tomorrow." "What?" Tyler's voice cracked. "But the client meeting. I'll call Morrison and reschedule. Better safe than sorry." Connor pulled out his phone and pretended to dial while watching Tyler frantically text someone. Within seconds, Tyler's phone rang. "It's Diana," Tyler said, answering immediately. "Hey, babe, I mean Diana. Yeah, he wants to postpone. I know, but what can I do?" Okay. Tyler hung up and forced another smile. "Diana says she needs to talk to you about Christmas plans. She's at the office." Connor nodded, but instead of heading home, he drove to a storage unit across town. Inside, behind stacks of seemingly random boxes, sat his real command center. Military-grade communication equipment, surveillance gear, and weapons that weren't exactly legal for civilian ownership. Rebecca was already there, surrounded by laptops and monitoring equipment. "They're panicking," she reported. "Diana's made 6 calls in the last hour. 3 to Vasquez, 2 to the Apex Logistics number, and 1 to a number registered to a Magnus Kellerman himself." "What did you hear?" "Diana's pushing for immediate action. She told Vasquez that waiting longer increases the risk of discovery. Kellerman's people are apparently standing by for a green light." Connor studied the surveillance photos Rebecca had taken. Kellerman's team consisted of 4 men, all former military, all with questionable records after leaving service. They'd been staying at a motel near the airport for 3 days. "What's their backup plan?" "From what I gathered, if the plane's sabotage failed, they were going to stage a home invasion. Make it look like a robbery gone wrong." Connor's expression darkened. These people weren't just planning to kill him. They were prepared to murder him in his own home, possibly when Diana was present to make her grief look authentic. "Time to turn the tables," Connor said, opening a weapons case. "But first, we need to make sure Diana and Tyler commit fully to their plan." He pulled out a small device that looked like a smartphone. "Remember the training exercise in Syria? The one where we convinced that arms dealer to walk into our kill zone?" Rebecca's eyes lit up with understanding. "You're going to make them think they succeeded. Better than that. I'm going to make them think they killed me, then watch them celebrate. When they're completely exposed and confident, that's when the cleaner strikes." Connor began assembling his gear. "Call Morrison's office and have them confirm that Tyler and I died in a plane crash somewhere over East Texas. Make sure the story reaches the local news. And then," Connor's smile was predatory, "then we see how long it takes Diana to start spending my money." The hunt was about to begin in earnest. Chapter 5, The Trap Springs. At 3:47 p.m., local news stations across Texas reported a tragic plane crash. A Cirrus SR-22 registered to Connor Mitchell had disappeared from radar over East Texas. Search and rescue operations were underway, but weather conditions made immediate recovery unlikely. Connor watched the broadcast from his command center, noting how quickly the story gained traction. Someone had made sure the media was primed for this particular tragedy. His phone exploded with calls and messages, friends, clients, business associates expressing shock and concern. Connor ignored them all, focusing instead on the 3 conversations Rebecca was monitoring in real time. Diana's first call was to Vasquez, her voice shaking with what sounded like genuine grief. "Leonard, oh my God, Connor's plane went down. They're saying there might not be survivors." But her second call, 30 minutes later to Tyler, revealed her true nature. Is it over? Are you sure they won't find anything? Tyler's response chilled Connor's blood. Kellerman's people confirmed the crash. They tracked the plane until it went down. No survivors possible from that altitude. That confirmed Connor's worst suspicions. Kellerman's team hadn't just sabotaged the plane. They'd been tracking it to ensure the job was completed. Rebecca handed Connor a headset as Diana placed her third call. Mr. Kellerman? This is Diana Mitchell. Yes, I'm sorry for your loss, too. What do you mean payment arrangements? But we agreed the payment was contingent on results. I see. Yes, I'll have Tyler transfer the funds tonight. Connor raised an eyebrow. Even in death, he was learning new things about his wife. She was negotiating payment for his own murder. How much? Rebecca whispered. Connor held up 5 fingers, then a 0. $500,000. His life had a price tag. By evening, Connor had a complete picture of their operation. Diana and Tyler had transferred $2 million to various accounts. Payment for Kellerman's team, Vasquez's legal services, and what appeared to be bribes to FAA officials who would certify the crash as pilot error. The most revealing conversation came at 9 p.m., when Diana called Tyler from what she thought was the privacy of her home. I can't believe we actually did it, she said, her voice giddy with relief and excitement. I know. I keep expecting Connor to walk through the door, Tyler replied. Well, he won't. That bastard got exactly what he deserved. Connor's hands tightened into fists. That bastard. Her husband of 7 years was just a bastard who deserved to die. When do we file the insurance claims? Tyler asked. Vasquez says to wait a week. Let the investigation conclude, then we move on to life insurance and the inheritance. Once the will is probated, we split $47 million. What about Rebecca? Diana's laugh was cold. What about her? She's not family by blood. The will is very specific, spouses and blood relatives only. Rebecca gets nothing. That was it. Connor had heard enough. He stood and began loading magazines for his weapons. Tactical gear went into a duffel bag, along with zip ties, duct tape, and other tools of his former trade. Rebecca, I need you to stay here and monitor communications. If this goes wrong, it won't, she interrupted. But Connor, what exactly are you planning? Connor's expression was granite hard. I'm going to give Diana and Tyler exactly what they gave me. But first, they're going to confess everything. Every detail, every conspiracy, every moment they thought about murdering me. And then the cleaner completes the job. Connor checked his watch. 11:30 p.m. Diana would be asleep, probably dreaming of her $47 million. Tyler would be at his apartment, likely celebrating with expensive whiskey. Time to remind them both that some people were very hard to kill. Chapter 6. Confessions in the Dark. Connor's approach to Tyler's apartment building was textbook special operations. Silent, methodical, invisible. He'd memorized the building's layout weeks ago during his surveillance, identified security cameras and blind spots, and noted the location of Tyler's unit on the 3rd floor. The lock on Tyler's door yielded to Connor's bump key in under 10 seconds. Inside, he found Tyler exactly where he'd expected, passed out drunk on his couch, an empty bottle of Macallan 25 on the coffee table beside printouts of bank transfer confirmations. Connor zip-tied Tyler's hands and feet before placing a strip of duct tape over his mouth. When Tyler's eyes fluttered open, Connor was sitting across from him in a chair, his Sig Sauer resting casually on his knee. Tyler's scream was muffled by the tape, his eyes wide with terror as he struggled against the restraints. "Afternoon, cousin," Connor said calmly. "Sorry I'm late. Plain trouble." Tyler thrashed violently, making muffled sounds of panic and disbelief. "I know what you're thinking. How am I alive? Simple. I never got on the plane." Connor held up a small device. Remote control. Amazing what military technology can do these days. "I flew that plane right into the ground from my truck." Connor leaned forward. "But before we discuss your immediate future, I want you to understand exactly how thoroughly you've failed." He produced Tyler's laptop, which displayed bank transfer records. "Kellerman's team? They work for me now. Have for 3 years. Magnus owes me a favor from our contracting days. When he told me what you and Diana were planning, I asked him to play along." Tyler's face went white as Connor continued. The $500,000 you paid them? They'll be returning it to my accounts, minus a consultation fee. The FAA officials you bribed? Also my contacts. The crash investigation will conclude that no one was on board when the plane went down. Connor removed the duct tape from Tyler's mouth. Connor, please, you don't understand. I understand perfectly. Connor's voice was ice. You conspired with my wife to murder me for money. You sabotaged my plane. You hired killers. You celebrated my death. Diana made me do it. She said you were planning to divorce her, leave her with nothing. She said it was self-defense. Connor almost laughed. Diana told you I was planning to divorce her? She had papers, legal documents, showing you were going to cut her off completely. Tyler, I was never planning to divorce Diana. Those papers were probably forgeries created by Vasquez to manipulate you. Connor shook his head. You were so eager to believe I was the villain that you never questioned her story. The truth hit Tyler like a physical blow. His face crumpled as he realized he'd been played. Now, Connor continued, you're going to tell me everything. Every conversation, every plan, every detail of how you conspired to murder me. And you're going to do it on camera. Connor set up a video camera and recording equipment. For the next 2 hours, Tyler confessed everything. Dates, amounts, conversations, methods. He detailed how Diana had approached him months ago, how she'd gradually convinced him that Connor was their enemy, how she'd promised him millions if he helped eliminate Connor. She said we'd be partners, Tyler sobbed. That after you were gone, she'd need someone she could trust. Did you really think Diana was going to share $47 million with you? Connor asked. Tyler's silence was answer enough. When the confession was complete, Connor reviewed the footage. Tyler had admitted to conspiracy to commit murder, sabotage, and fraud. More than enough to put him away for life. What happens now? Tyler whispered. Connor stood and holstered his weapon. Now you disappear. You're going to kill me? Tyler, killing you would be a mercy. You're going to live with what you've done. But you're going to live somewhere very far away, with people who don't appreciate betrayal. Connor made a phone call. Within an hour, 2 men arrived, former colleagues from Connor's contracting days. They bundled Tyler into a van without a word. Where are you taking him? Tyler screamed as they dragged him away. Afghanistan, Connor replied. There's a warlord there who needs someone to test his minefields. Congratulations, cousin. You just volunteered. As the van disappeared into the night, Connor felt a cold satisfaction. Tyler's fate was sealed. Now, it was Diana's turn. But Diana's punishment would be far more creative than Tyler's exile. Diana had betrayed not just Connor, but their marriage, their vows, their life together. For that, she deserved something special. Connor drove toward home, where his loving wife was probably still mourning his tragic death. Time to give her the surprise of her life. Chapter 7. The Widow's Grief. Diana's performance as the grieving widow was Academy Award-worthy. When Connor observed her through the home security cameras he'd never told her about, she played the part perfectly. Tissue box beside her, red-rimmed eyes, black dress that suggested mourning while accentuating her figure. The funeral was scheduled for Friday, 3 days away. Diana had thrown herself into the planning with what appeared to be desperate grief, but was actually careful stage management. She'd selected an expensive casket, premium burial plot, and catering that would cost more than most people's annual salary. All paid for with Connor's money, naturally. From his command center, Connor monitored Diana's every move. She'd been busy in his absence, meeting with Vasquez to begin probate proceedings, contacting insurance companies about the life insurance policies, and making preliminary inquiries about selling the house. Most interesting was the call she'd placed to a real estate agent about properties in Monaco. I'm thinking of relocating, Diana had said. Somewhere warm. Somewhere I can start fresh after my loss. Connor smiled grimly. Diana was planning to disappear with his money to a country with no extradition treaty. Smart, but not smart enough. Rebecca entered the command center carrying coffee and a folder of documents. Tyler's confession is uploaded to secure servers in 3 countries, she reported. If anything happens to us, automatic triggers will send copies to the FBI, IRS, and local authorities. Good. What about Diana's activities? She's been in contact with someone interesting. Ever heard of Julian Reeves? Connor's blood chilled. Julian Reeves was Diana's ex-boyfriend from college, the one she claimed to have lost touch with years ago. He was also a convicted felon who'd served time for fraud and identity theft. How long have they been in contact? Best I can tell, about a year. Maybe longer. The communications are encrypted, but I managed to crack some of them. Rebecca handed Connor a printout. Julian's in Monaco. He's been setting up offshore accounts and fake identities. Connor read the communications, his anger building with each line. Diana hadn't just been planning to kill him for the inheritance. She'd been planning to disappear with her ex-boyfriend using Connor's money. There's more, Rebecca continued. Julian's criminal history includes something interesting. 3 years ago, he was suspected but never charged in the death of a wealthy widow in Miami. She'd recently changed her will to leave him everything, then died in a suspicious car accident. He's done this before. Looks like it. Diana isn't his first mark, and you probably wouldn't have been his last. Connor studied surveillance photos of Julian, tall, handsome in a sleazy way, the kind of man who specialized in charming wealthy women. Diana had traded her husband for a professional predator. What's the timeline? Based on their communications, Diana plans to leave the country immediately after the will is probated. The inheritance should clear within 2 weeks of the funeral. Connor checked his watch. The funeral was in 18 hours. Time to make his final preparations. Rebecca, I need you to handle the technical side. Make sure all evidence packages are ready for distribution. If this goes wrong, it won't go wrong, she interrupted. But Connor, what exactly are you planning for Diana? Connor's smile was utterly without warmth. I'm going to give her everything she wants. The inheritance, the insurance money, even Julian. But first, she's going to learn what it feels like to be betrayed by someone you trust. He opened a weapons case and began assembling specialized equipment. Not for killing, but for something much more creative. Diana thinks she's a black widow, Connor said. Time to introduce her to a real predator. Chapter 8. The Resurrection. Connor's funeral was a masterpiece of theater. Diana sat in the front row of St. Andrew's Episcopal Church, dabbing her eyes with a black handkerchief as the pastor delivered a eulogy about Connor's service to his country and dedication to his family. The church was packed. Connor's military friends, business associates, and clients had come to pay their respects. Many of them approached Diana afterward, offering condolences and support during her difficult time. Diana played the role perfectly, accepting sympathy with grace and dignity while occasionally breaking down with grief that seemed utterly authentic. From his position in the church balcony, disguised with a beard and glasses, Connor watched his own funeral with clinical detachment. Diana's performance was flawless, but he caught the moments when she checked her phone, the quick glances at her watch, the subtle signs that she was eager for this charade to end. After the service, the procession moved to Oakwood Cemetery, where a mahogany casket was lowered into the ground while Diana threw dirt on top with trembling hands. Connor followed at a distance, noting which attendees were genuine mourners and which were merely curious onlookers. When the ceremony concluded, he watched Diana accept final condolences before being driven home by Rebecca, who was also playing her role as the grieving sister-in-law. That evening, Connor positioned himself in his home's hidden observation room, a space behind a master bedroom that Diana had never discovered. Through one-way mirrors, he watched his widow's true colors emerge. The moment Rebecca left, Diana's grief vanished like a discarded costume. She poured herself a glass of Connor's most expensive wine, kicked off her funeral heels, and called Julian Reeves. "It's done," she said, her voice light with relief. "The bastard is finally in the ground." Julian's voice came through clearly on the speakerphone. "Any problems?" "None. Everyone bought the grieving widow act completely. Even Rebecca seems to believe I actually loved her brother." "When do you fly out?" "Day after tomorrow. The lawyers say the will should be probated within 10 days. Once the money clears, I'll transfer everything to our Monaco accounts." "What about the insurance money?" Diana laughed, a sound that no longer held any beauty for Connor. $20 million in life insurance. They'll have to pay out once the death certificate is filed. And if anyone gets suspicious, who's going to be suspicious? Tyler's disappeared, probably on some bender somewhere. Rebecca inherits nothing, so she has no standing to challenge anything. I'm the grieving widow with ironclad documentation. Connor had heard enough. He activated a remote control device, and every light in the house went out. Julian? Julian, are you there? Diana's voice carried a note of panic as the call dropped. Emergency lighting kicked in, bathing the house in an eerie red glow. Connor's voice came through the home's intercom system, electronically disguised but unmistakably his. "Hello, Diana." Diana screamed, dropping her wine glass. "Who is this? How did you get in here?" "I never left, darling wife." Diana ran to the front door, but the electronic locks had engaged. She tried the windows, also locked by the home's security system. "Connor," her voice was a whisper. "That's impossible. You're dead. I saw them bury you." "You saw them bury an empty casket," Connor's voice replied through the speakers. "Did you really think the cleaner would be taken down by sabotaged aircraft and hired killers?" Diana collapsed into a chair, her face white with terror. "This isn't real. This is some kind of breakdown. Grief hallucination." "Check your phone, Diana." Diana's phone buzzed with a text message containing a video file. When she opened it, she saw Tyler's confession, every detail of their conspiracy, every payment, every plan. "Tyler told me everything," Connor's voice continued. "About Vasquez, about Kellerman's team, about your boyfriend Julian. Did you really think a convicted felon was going to share $47 million with you?" "Connor, please, you don't understand. I can explain." "No explanations necessary. I heard everything, Diana. Every phone call, every plan, every moment you celebrated my death." Diana began sobbing, genuine tears this time, born of terror rather than grief. "What do you want?" "Justice," Connor replied. "And I'm going to get it." The lights came back on, but Diana was no longer alone in the room. Connor stood behind her, very much alive, wearing tactical gear and holding documentation that would destroy her life. "Hello, wife," he said quietly. "We need to talk." Chapter 9. The Cleaner's Justice. Diana tried to run, but Connor caught her wrist with the casual ease of a man trained to subdue enemies. He guided her back to the chair, where she sat trembling as he spread documents across the coffee table. "Let's review your situation," Connor said calmly. "You conspired to murder me. You committed fraud with the insurance companies. You sabotaged my aircraft. You hired professional killers. Any one of these crimes carries a life sentence." Diana's lawyer instincts kicked in through her terror. "You can't prove any of that. Tyler's gone, and his confession was obtained under duress." "Tyler's confession is just the beginning," Connor interrupted. He activated a tablet showing surveillance footage. "I have video of you meeting with Vasquez, audio recordings of your phone calls with Julian, bank records showing the payments to Kellerman's team, your own voice celebrating my death." Diana watched the evidence stack against her, her face growing paler with each revelation. "But here's what interests me most," Connor continued, producing another document. "Your communications with Julian Reeves go back 14 months. Diana said nothing, but her silence was confirmation enough. The inheritance was just convenient timing. You would have found another way to get rid of me eventually. Connor's voice was eerily calm. You married me for my money, stayed with me for my money, and tried to kill me for my money. Connor, please. I'm not finished. Connor pulled out a chair and sat across from her, close enough that she could see the controlled fury in his eyes. You want to know what hurts most? It's not the betrayal. It's not even the murder attempt. It's that you made me doubt myself. Diana looked confused. For months, I thought I was losing my mind. You were distant, cold, lying about everything. I thought maybe I'd become someone unlovable. Maybe I'd failed as a husband. Connor's voice grew quieter, more dangerous. You made me think I was the problem. Diana finally found her voice. You were never home, always working, always focused on business. I felt like a stranger in my own marriage. So you decided to murder me instead of divorcing me. The prenup would have left you with $5 million, more than most people see in a lifetime. But it wasn't enough, was it? You wanted everything. Diana's composure finally cracked completely. Yes, I wanted everything. I deserved everything. Do you know what it's like being married to someone everyone calls the cleaner? Living with someone who kills people for a living. I stopped taking military contracts 3 years ago, but you still have that look in your eyes. Like you're always calculating how to eliminate threats. It's terrifying. Connor stared at her for a long moment. You're right. I do have that look. And right now, Diana, you're definitely a threat. Diana's eyes widened as Connor stood and walked to a wall safe she'd never known existed. Inside were documents, cash, and several items that definitely weren't legal for civilian ownership. Here's what's going to happen, Connor said, returning with a thick envelope. You have two choices. He placed a passport on the table, one with Diana's photo, but a different name. Choice 1. You take this passport and $50,000. You get on a plane tonight and disappear forever. You never contact Julian, never access any of our joint accounts, never set foot in Texas again. You become someone else and build a new life far away from here. Diana stared at the passport. And choice 2. Connor placed a second document on the table, a confession letter already written in Diana's handwriting, courtesy of samples Connor had collected over the years. Choice 2. The FBI receives a complete evidence package documenting your conspiracy to commit murder, along with this signed confession. You spend the rest of your life in federal prison, where I'm told life expectancy is quite short for people who try to kill military veterans. Diana picked up the confession, reading her own handwriting, confessing to crimes she'd actually committed. How did you? I've been planning this conversation for weeks, Diana. I know how you form your letters, how you phrase sentences, how you think. Creating a convincing forgery wasn't difficult. Diana looked between the passport and the confession. If I take the passport, what guarantee do I have that you won't come after me later? None, Connor replied honestly. But consider the alternative. Prison, followed by whatever accidents might befall someone who tried to kill the cleaner. Diana's hand shook as she reached for the passport. The $50,000 won't last long. Then you'll need to find work. I'm told waitressing and retail pay reasonably well. Connor's smile was without mercy. Consider a motivation to develop skills beyond manipulating men. Diana stood on unsteady legs. I need to pack. No, you leave with what you're wearing and the money I'm giving you. Everything else stays here. Your jewelry, your clothes, your car, all purchased with my money. Connor, please. You have 10 minutes to make your choice, Diana. After that, the confession goes to the FBI. Diana looked around the house that had been her home for 7 years, at the life she was about to lose forever. Then she looked at Connor's face and saw no mercy, no forgiveness, no possibility of negotiation. She picked up the passport and money. I hate you, she whispered. I know, Connor replied, but you'll be alive to hate me, which is more than you planned to give me. Connor walked Diana to the door, where a car was waiting. Not a taxi. One of Connor's associates who would ensure Diana reached the airport and boarded her flight. As the car pulled away, Rebecca emerged from the shadows. Think she'll stay disappeared? Connor watched the taillights vanish into the night. She's a survivor. She'll adapt. And if she doesn't, Connor's smile was cold and final. Then she'll learn why they call me the cleaner. 3 months later, Connor received a postcard from Prague. No message, just a picture of the city skyline. He recognized Diana's handwriting in the address. She was alive, building a new life far from Texas. Connor hoped she'd learned something from their encounter, though he doubted it. People like Diana rarely changed. Tyler, meanwhile, had lasted 6 weeks in Afghanistan before a landmine ended his particular story. Connor felt no satisfaction in his cousin's death, just the cold completion of a necessary task. The inheritance from his grandfather remained untouched in Connor's accounts. $47 million that had cost so many people so much. Connor donated half of it to veteran charities and used the rest to expand Titan Defense Solutions. He never remarried. Trust, once broken, was nearly impossible to rebuild. But sometimes, late at night in his home office, Connor would pour himself a glass of his grandfather's bourbon and reflect on a lesson he'd learned. Family wasn't about blood or marriage vows. Family was about loyalty, trust, and standing together against the world. Rebecca understood that. She'd proven it when she helped him survive Diana's betrayal. Diana and Tyler had forgotten it and paid the price. The cleaner's work was complete. And there you have it. Another story comes to an end. What did you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy this story, consider joining our community by subscribing. It means the world to us. For more stories like this one, check out the recommended videos on screen. And I'll see you there.